Hello everyone, welcome to this week's online learning session. This week is going to be slightly different. Obviously I'm recording it like this and not on Zoom. And also we're not going to be talking specifically about volleyball stuff. We're going to be talking about athletic development stuff, which I think for pretty much everyone is really important. It's something that I'm going through at the moment. I'm reassessing, I'm replanning, redoing all of this, and it's something that is a really, really important step in how you become a better athlete. So this applies whether you're an adult learner, a junior learner, whether you are an amateur and you're not taking it that seriously at all the way up to professional athletes. You know, this is how you fast track your learning and make sure that everything that you're doing is really on point. And the reason why I place such a stress on this, is for me, as someone that doesn't have a full-time coach, I've got some great people who do help me out and coach, but that none of them are paid to do that. They do it out of the goodness of their hearts, and that means that I can't be asking them to put together a full program of what we're going to do, of development, etc., because they quite simply haven't got time for that, and I haven't got the money to pay them to do that for me. So I have to be responsible for my self-assessment. I have to be responsible for setting my own goals. Yes, I do it under the eyes of other people, but at the end of the day, that comes back to me and me taking responsibility for my journey and my improvement in volleyball. And the reason why we do this is because if we self-assess, and if we set ourselves goals, that then makes our training and our processes a lot more focused. So this week we're talking about planning and goal setting. We're going to start off talking about self-assessment. I've put TTMP here. We'll explain what that means in a moment. And then in the next few weeks we're going to then talk about things like routines, sleep, rest, stretching and preparation, what we're eating, all of that kind of stuff that you don't think about as an athlete, but actually makes up more of your waking hours than the training and the watching volleyball. So it's actually probably more important. One thing I'm going to briefly mention is, if you notice, I'm sitting rather than on a chair, and you'll probably notice me changing posture quite a lot over the period that we're doing this. The reason for that being that having spoken to my S&C guy, my strength and conditioning man, we've identified that, for example, a weakness for me is my hip mobility. And we find that as soon as I stay sitting for longer than an hour or so, my hips kind of really clump up, and that makes me doing the physical side of my training quite difficult because I can't squat with as much mobility. So trying to make changes to how I operate day to day, so doing a lot more in sort of sitting like this, or in shin box, which is this one. I don't know whether you can see that, but lots of different kind of postures to help me keep my hips nice and mobile, which will then help me when I get on court. So that's an example of things that we can do, self-assessing. We assess that my hips were tight. Then we were able to put in steps to prevent that, and now I've implemented that in my day-to-day routine and how I address things. Okay, so that's a change that we've made recently, and that's the kind of thing that we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks. Anyway, on to self-assessment. Now, before we can do this planning and goal setting stuff, we have to know what we need to work on. And it's a little bit old school, but I really quite like it because it helps us to focus not just on the volleyball side, but also on all the things that make us the player that we are. And those are this TTMP, so that's technical, tactical, mental, physical. Sorry for my writing, it's pretty shabby. But anyway, and these are kind of the four big blocks that we can separate up ourselves as beach volleyball players into. Now, over the last few weeks, we've mainly been talking about technical and tactical stuff. Okay, and that's obviously half of what makes us a good beach volleyball player. When you watch really top beach volleyball players, you know, they're going to be good at the technical stuff, okay, and they're probably going to be good at the tactical stuff as well. But what you don't see in behind that really is all the mental strength and the physical strength. But they will have that. They will be doing the hours in the gym. They will be doing the work with sports psychologists, or they will have, you know, spent a lot of time thinking about their mental game in order to be able to compete at that top level. Because I can assure you that those players at the top of the world, they are good in all four areas of this, for sure. Because you can't, you just, especially in beach volleyball, you can't compete unless you're an all-rounder. And so that's why we need to bring on each area of this before we can progress to the next one. Because just because you're really good technically, then you might have the best digging platform in the world, but you put in a game and you don't know where to serve on the opposition, or or where you should be passing that ball, even though you can pass really well. If you haven't got the tactics behind that, then you won't be able to win that game and therefore kind of keep progressing. So, to give you an example of self-assessment, I'm going to do myself. So technically, I think at the moment I'm pretty happy with where my passing has been at. I've been cutting off the ball pretty early, which is good, and I've been getting pretty solid behind the ball, so that's good. So remember, self-assessment is not just negatives, we're looking at positives as well. So I think in terms of passing, I think what I'd like to be able to do is to open out backwards. So we've been doing a little bit of that last week. Open out backwards a little bit, but then keep my weight going forwards, because sometimes I get a little bit stuck. And then also when I'm getting the short one, is I have a tendency to over lunge into that area, and then hit the sand. I'd like to sort of take an extra step to get there, pass it so I'm still on my feet, and then be able to come back. So that's an example of like a technical analysis of a skill. So I'd say anything that's coming kind of high to the outside of me, I'm very good at. Anything that's really deep, I need to make sure that I'm getting stable, and anything that's coming short in front of me, then I need to take just one extra step. So I've isolated small little things that I can change there. From a hitting perspective, I think I'm quite good with my vision. I can see quite a lot, as long as I leave the ball in front of me. But I do have a habit to sort of kind of come in early occasionally, especially when I'm mentally under pressure, and that's when my vision goes. So I think for me, you can see how the technical aspect of the hitting ties up with the mental here, is I need to find a mental space where I'm telling myself, wait on the hit. Because when I'm waiting, I can hit the ball harder because I'm coming through smoother and I can see the other side. So it's trying to find that spot where I'm telling myself and practicing that cue to wait to come in and hit the ball. Okay? Things on the physical side. So like I said, at the moment, we've identified, say, that my hips are quite tight. I think other things that we've identified, I've had a couple of niggles here and there. My left knee sometimes hurts, so we're working on trying to keep my, when I'm jumping, that my left knee doesn't come in and buckle when I'm taking off. But the other way you can do physical stuff is you can measure jump height. You can work out, are there any imbalances in your body? What do you need to be able to go to the next level? And often that, that comes with, it's not just raw jump data, because sometimes we are limited by that. I'm never going to be the biggest jumper in the world. I'm not the springiest guy, I never have been. But what I can add to it is that I've got a pretty good engine, so I will just keep going through games and I can hold a good level, and trying to be as dynamic as I can. So making sure that I can get those 2, 3, 4 meters fast twitch runs, and that I can go and get to balls as fast as I can. So those little things are also little physical tweaks that I can make to make sure that in my conditioning that's right. Is there anything that's limiting you, do you think? Have you got a full range of mobility through lots of your movements? Are your shoulders really tight? Do you have a shoulder ache that's stopping you from fully opening up on your hip? Are your hips really tight? Do you have an old injury that you haven't looked at for a little while and sometimes aches? All of those things are physical impingements, or physical things that you can start to remedy, and now is a brilliant time to do so. So that would be kind of physical assessment, but make sure that you're also assessing there what's good. It's not just a negative thing. You have to embrace what's good, and you have to say, okay, this is a real strength. How can I make my other assets kind of match up with that strength so that I can kind of jump up next to it? Do I rely too much on having really flexible shoulders to get me out of trouble because I'm not jumping underneath the ball, for example? So those sorts of things are really important to work out. Mental. Now, this is something that's quite hard to make tangible, but if I do my mental assessment, I'd say I think my strength and my weakness is that I am really passionate about volleyball. And that means that I never have any problems motivating myself to train. It means that I always want to do a bit more, so I'm always wanting to be out there training. But at the same time, it means that when I get to an important game, I'm very, very revved up, okay, and I'm very nervous or excited, scared, a combination of all of those. And especially when I've got to World Tour events, those games mean a lot to me because that's what I spend most of the year training towards. And so when I get there, I do need to make sure that I'm trying to relax. And sometimes me being as passionate as I am about it means that I am not relaxed enough, and therefore that rubs off on my performance. So now that I've recognised that, what I'm working on with different coaches is trying to establish a routine pre-game and a routine for even things like timeouts and side changes, where I can relax and reset and get myself to a head space where I can really think about what I need to be doing rather than all the other stuff that comes into your brain when you are playing. So, what are the consequences of winning this game? Thinking about where you could go in the tournament if you win this game. Think about, who the other side are you playing on, they're ranked whatever in the world. All of those things are completely irrelevant in the moment and don't help you at all. And yet they are the things that come through my brain, and probably, some of your brains as well when you're playing. It's kind of learning to recognise that self-dialogue and not necessarily say, oh, what am I thinking about that before, that again, but being able to switch that off and recognise it and then push it away and then think about what you need to be thinking. And that is something that I'm definitely getting better at, but it's something that I've still got a long way to improving, if I'm honest with myself. So, as you can see, those are things that then, those self-assessments then start to form my goals. So I'm going to get rid of these, and then we're going to go okay, and into planning and goal setting. So when you're setting those goals, then I want you to be thinking about the tactical, technical, mental, physical goals, and trying to translate those into short term, mid term, and long term. So when I say short term, that's kind of over the next week or 2 weeks, what are the small things, and these need to be like individual mini things that you are going to work on to try and change a little bit of. So, and that can be pretty diverse, okay? So, in terms of mental stuff, over the next week, I could say, okay, I'm going to watch 2 World Tour videos, and I'm going to watch and try and break down how people who are under pressure, what are they doing to cope? When are they taking their time out? Trying to think about what are they talking about and what would I talk about in the time out at that time. And so that I'm trying to assess and think about, how I would deal with that in that situation. My midterm mental goal might be this season, I want to have, I want to get into one tight game and feel like I'm in control mentally. Okay, so like I said, sometimes I feel like I'm not in control of the mental state. I want to just get to one game and really feel like I've absolutely nailed my preparation mentally. Okay, and then long term, obviously, so that might be over the next 2 or 3 years, is getting to a spot where I know and I recognise exactly what I'm feeling at that time, and therefore, because I'm recognising that, I know what I need to do to stop or start something. So how I need to relax or how I need to G up a little bit and get myself a bit more ready. So trying to find myself in that sort of scenario. Does that make sense? So giving yourself separate goals, okay, and a time scale to do that. So you've got, in the short term, you've got small things that you're going to do to help build towards the long-term goal, okay? For example, on a technical point of view now, if we go back to the passing bit that I talked about, let's say the short serve element that I talked about. So the short-term goal is to practice and work on taking an extra step when I'm moving forwards to the net. So over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to have 2 sessions where we do a bulk, quite a few reps of me getting to a short serve. And that will involve me taking my feet there and being static as I play that ball. Okay? Then the midterm, so that's over a month or 2 months, then I might be talking about in games, feeling like, I am comfortable passing that ball, okay? Or, no, it's not. So the midterm, I'd say, you probably could quantify that and say that you pass 100% of the balls in one game effectively that were short, for example. And then over a long-term period, then we'd say, okay, then the priority is that we have taking that short ball, and then we're also looking at the further corner one, so that building on everything together, right? And that might be over a couple of years, the deep one to the corner, right? So in the short term, I pick something individual to work on. Then in the midterm, I might kind of quantify that and see how it goes in games and in training. And then in the long term, it's how does that now look on the overall picture? So in the long term, I want to be able to pass that ball and that ball behind me with a certain, amount of accuracy, for example. So putting small building blocks together to make a longer term vision. Okay. Good. So that's, that's your homework for this week, is to kind of go away and assess yourselves in the different areas of playing. So tactical, technical, mental, physical. Okay. And have a look at the different skills in volleyball. Okay. And what do you do well? What do you not do well? And think about then, when you're planning, okay, it's about embracing what I keep saying to everyone that I'm trying to coach at the moment, is about embracing what you can do right now, rather than wondering about what you can't do. So if you've got a net that you can set up in the park, well, just go and get your mum and dad or brother and sister or whoever it is, whoever you're living with. Even if you're living on your own, that's fine, and you want to work on passing the short ball, then you can just go out there, even if you don't have a net, and just practice taking a couple of steps forward and being solid and then making a passing motion, okay? Then you could get someone to come with a ball and they slap it, throw the ball up, and you've got to make your approach. Then you could get them to go further away and throw it. So you can build up sessions working on exactly what you need to work on, and they can be very simple, but it's about that slow progress towards the goal. Okay, and that comes into the planning, is you have to assess, okay, where am I on the spectrum of how good I am on this skill? Okay, and what do I need to do to improve? And it should be short jumps each time. You don't want to go from, I'm not very good at this, to I'm going to go into a really complex drill working on this. It's, okay, I'm going to work on a small aspect of it. I'm going to work on getting the feet right, okay? Then I'm going to work on getting the feet and the arms right, and now I'm going to work on someone serving it at me in a live situation, so it's even harder. And then I'm going to work on, they can serve anywhere they like, and then occasionally they'll serve the short one. So I'm not even ready for that one. Does that make sense? So you're building up the different stages. And coming in planning is, you know, as you go along and you do each session, you just have to reassess and be honest with yourself. Did I actually hit my objectives for today? And if you didn't, that's okay. Because then you say, okay, I think I need a little bit longer on that. So next time I come back, I'm going to do that same drill again until I'm happy with it. Or, okay, I found that actually I could do that pretty easily. I thought I was very effective at that. I think I can move on, right? And it's that constant re-evaluation of yourself and re-evaluating your goals that, you know, not necessarily with the long-term and mid-term ones, but definitely with the short-term ones, you have to keep thinking, okay, have I hit that? And if you keep doing that, you'll find that you hit a lot of the mid-term goals. And then once you start realising, oh, okay, I've hit a lot of the mid-term goals, then you'll realise, oh, actually, I've just hit the long-term goal and it's time to set myself a new one, right? So my goal for you today is go away, get yourself a little book, a diary, whatever it is. Here is, so you could get yourself a little bit of paper. And I want you to go short-term, self-assessment at the top, technical, tactical, mental, physical, assess yourself, okay? Then at the bottom here, I want you to write short-term goals and then make sure you've got some in each one. So a couple of technical goals, a couple of tactical goals, a couple of mental goals, a couple of physical goals, okay? Same for mid-term, same for long-term, okay? And I'd be interested in, hopefully we're going to do a live session again next week. And I'd be interested to know what you've put down and what you're going to work on and how you've started to go about it. Okay? Thanks, guys. Enjoy. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to send me them. I'll get back to you. And if not, see you next week. Thanks.